Hello, my name is Dr. Lindsey Oakes, and I'm an assistant professor of therapeutic recreation at Texas State University in the Department of Health and Human Performance. So, I'll be talking to you today about a study exploring and developing an inclusive culture within campus recreation and sports for college students with intellectual and/or developmental disabilities. So, with the large number of Americans with IDD, there are 300 inclusive post secondary education programs in the United States that are designed to serve college students with IDD. On top of this, there are also college students with autism and intellectual disabilities that are attending college but are not necessarily a part of IPSC programs. And due to the prevalence of autism across the country, researchers are expecting an exponential increase in the number of enrolled college students with autism. So, with these statistics combined, there's a large number of college students with IDD, and this number is expected to grow over the coming years. So, historically, kind of looking back into the literature, individuals with IDD experience mental health concerns, low levels of things like social skills, relationships, physical activity, fitness, health, quality of life, and community participation, as well as the presence of secondary health conditions. However, participation in recreation and sports can produce a variety of physical and social health outcomes for students with IDD, but also for students without IDD who are participating alongside students with IDD. Unfortunately, there are minimal efforts in practice and research when it comes to inclusion of college students with IDD in settings outside of the classroom. And now more than ever, campus recreation and sports departments are really under pressure to provide opportunities that produce physical and social outcomes for diverse student populations. So, the study I'm talking with you all about today is a grant funded study that was recently completed. It was funded by Special Olympics Unified Sports at the national level, and we examined campus recreation and sports experiences of college students with IDD and recreation and sports staff. So, this was a mixed method study. We used web based surveys and semi structured interviews to collect data. And we worked with three different types of universities. So, just to give you a little bit of background, Special Olympics has unified sports programming in particular that brings together individuals with IDD and without IDD on the same sports team. So that's kind of the focus of unified sports programming. At the Type 1 university in our study, we had a school that had no Special Olympics club on campus and no unified sports programming. At the Type 2 university, this university did have unified sports programming, but it was affiliated with the Special Olympics club on campus. And lastly, at the Type 3 university, they also had unified sports programming, but it was affiliated with the broader university and their intramural sports programming within the campus rec and sports department. So, with these three types of universities, we did surveys with students with and without IDD, as well as IPSC program staff and campus recreation and sports staff. And we did in a semi-structured interviews with students with IDD and the campus recreation and sports staff. For data analysis, we did descriptive statistics and ran ANOVAs for our quantitative data, and we did thematic analysis for our qualitative data. And we compared and contrasted between the quantitative and qualitative data to stay true to our mixed method study. So there were a variety of exciting results from this study, which if you look over to the references, the second reference, we currently have a manuscript under review that highlights all of these different results and findings. But I just wanted to share a few with you as a part of this presentation today. So in table 5 under results, top left-hand side, I wanted to point out that the type 3 university, which had unified sports that was affiliated with the broader university, had the highest percentage and numbers of college students with IDD participating in a variety of campus recreation and sports opportunities that are available to all college students on their campus, regardless of disability. Moving down to table 11, right under table 5, I wanted to point out that there were significant differences found between the attitudes towards rights of people with IDD, towards autonomy, towards community participation among the students without IDD between the type 1 and the type 2/type 3 university. So the type 1 university that had no Special Olympics club and no unified sports had significantly lower scores on these attitudes compared to the type 2 and type 3 university that did have unified sports. Moving over to another piece of table 11, which is in the upper right-hand corner of the results section, you can see that there are significant differences that were found between the students without IDDs perceptions of campus as being more inclusive at the type 2 and type 3 university. So at the type 2 university that had unified sports but was affiliated with the Special Olympics Club, they had significantly lower scores on the students without IDD perception of campus as more inclusive compared to the university type 3 that had unified sports that was affiliated with the larger university, which is really telling, given that the type 3 university had unified sports that was affiliated with a broader university. So higher levels of integration and awareness among students without IDD of the benefits and the presence of this inclusive programming. So it made sense that the scores at type 3 universities for perceptions of campus as more inclusive were higher, significantly higher. And lastly, table 10, there were significant differences found among campus recreation and sports staff's perceptions of campus as more inclusive between the type 1 university compared to the type 2/type 3 university in particular. And it kind of follows this same trend where the type 3 university having unified sports, being affiliated with a broader university, more aware of, more integrated within the broader university, was productive of higher perceptions of campus as being more inclusive among campus rec and sports staff compared to the type 2 university that had unified sports, but it was only affiliated with Special Olympics Club, and then also compared to the type 1 university that had no unified sports. And lastly, the thematic findings that I wanted to point out, there are several of these, but kind of the most important ones are that two barriers in particular in our thematic findings were present amongst all types of the universities within our study. So assumptions about college students with IDD and lack of effective communication with college students with IDD and marketing for college students with IDD were barriers to inclusive service delivery at all three types of universities. And it led to this big need that was across all three types of universities for consistent quality inclusion training for all staff. So these results really shed light on the importance of meaningful social inclusion of college students with IDD within campus recreation and sports. Also, more inclusive service delivery that is happening increases positive attitudes of students without IDD and of recreation and sports staff towards students with IDD. And lastly, recreation and sports staff really present the need for consistent quality inclusion training. So that leads to our next steps in this research trajectory. A team of co-researchers from the University of North Carolina, Greensboro, and I have just resubmitted on April 4th a R43 SBIR grant proposal to the National Institute for Child Health and Development and their Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities branch. And it's focused on developing an inclusive culture within campus sport and recreation for college students with IDD. So if funded, this grant will enable us to do research that will be focused on developing a web-based inclusion training for campus recreation and sports staff. And the unique thing about this web-based inclusion training is that college students with IDD will be an integral part as co-researchers in the development of the web-based inclusion training, as well as serving as the face of the web-based inclusion trainings. And this web-based inclusion training will be sent out to a large sample of campus rec and sports departments across the country and be tested for feasibility and efficacy. So really exciting work that we're looking forward to. And lastly, I just wanted to acknowledge Special Olympics Unified Sports as the funders of this study that I talked to you about today, as well as a PI that worked with me on this study from UNC Greensboro, Dr. Jeffrey Milroy. So thank you so much.